Julie, thanks for joining us. It's good to see you today.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. All right, so a lot of stuff to talk about, including the big news yesterday. The WHO, not the band, by the way, the World Health Organization. I don't think Roger Daltrey cares what you eat, but the World Health Organization says stop eating bacon. Don't eat sausage. It causes cancer. It's going to kill you. You got to quit eating the processed foods and the processed meats. And I thought to myself, very first phrase that popped into my mind, Julie, culture of alarmism.
That's right. I'm so glad. And this is the thing. People are misinterpreting what they're reading. I think that the study that was done, and actually it's a very significant study that was done. They reviewed over 800 different studies on the impact of these smoked meats or preserved meats on certain kinds of cancer. Again, it's not all cancer. It's colorectal. It's having to do with your colon and rectal cancer. And so, it's not all forms of cancer. But they have found that eating certain preserved meats and also just meat does increase your chances of getting cancer. But what's important to understand is that it's actually, you have to eat a lot of it, like every single day, and it only increases your chances a little bit. So it's not something, I think people, and this is part of the Culture of Alarmism project, is also sort of looking at headlines, scary headlines. I mean, that's a whole industry, creating headlines that will get people to click on the story. And many of the headlines yesterday were meat equals cancer. That was really basically to distill it. It was meat equals cancer, and it's really much more complicated than that. And there were some really funny follow-ups from the science community. Ed Yong is a science writer. He actually wrote a really good piece saying that the WHO and this particular agency within the WHO that does research into cancer and the causes of cancer is really, really bad at communicating their message. Now, look, this agency, what it does is it puts things in categories. There are class 1 carcinogens. That's things like smoking. What's so funny is they put smoked meats in the same category as smoking. Okay, now that's nuts, because obviously if you're going to smoke your whole life and people who eat bacon their whole life, the rates of cancer aren't the same. So it doesn't really assess risk. It's just, it could happen. It does increase. I mean, smoking is going to increase your risk of cancer so much more than having a slice of salami. So it doesn't account for that. And certainly the headlines didn't either.
Well, and of course, this led the nightly newscast on all 3 networks last night.
Yeah.
Because again, culture of alarmism, right?
It sells.
There's the alarmism part of that phrase, but there's also the culture part of that phrase, and the media loves stories like this. But I'm looking around last night, and I found a story from a couple of years ago, another study, right? Eating vegetables give you cancer because of the fertilizers that are used to grow the vegetables. Increased risk of cancer if you're eating veggies. Different kind of cancer.
Right.
I think this was esophageal cancer.
Yeah.
This is. And I think as I'm looking at this, it just kind of struck me that, okay, maybe we don't freak out about every new study that comes out.
Right.
Because stress can kill you too, by the way.
Right.
So maybe we just take a deep breath, calm down, avoid a yoga pose that's too strenuous, because that could probably hurt you too. But just, why don't we just eat with some common sense?
Right. And look,
don't eat too much. Have some veggies every now and then. Walk around, get some exercise. I mean, it's not going to give you rock hard 6-pack abs, but I think that's a fairly easy and doable way for most of us to eat and live.
I wrote a piece yesterday. Also, this sort of meat equals cancer sort of theory has been floating around. This isn't new. We've been hearing about this for years. And actually, I wrote about it yesterday and found an old piece that I had written in 2001. And at that time, there was a study out of Great Britain, and it said, meat causes cancer. But what they also found was that the people who had the higher rates of cancer, who also ate these meats, these cured and smoked meats, also tended to smoke more. They were obese, and they had other really unhealthy habits. So, I mean, why this is news that, look, you practice unhealthy habits, smoking, being overweight, not getting enough exercise, and other things, and you die early. I mean, this isn't shocking news, So again, I think we all need to, like you said, calm down, realize that this is, this is pretty common sense. You might not want to have bacon and eggs every morning, but I feel like that's been sort of known for years. This is not this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that look, there are the outliers. You always see those stories, just like we see scary stories. You always see those stories that of the 150-year-old person who's like, the secret to living long is bacon and eggs and whiskey every day. So you always have these, these outliers. But I think in general, people kind of get that it's probably better to have a varied diet, heavy in fruits and vegetables, but have the Sunday pancakes and bacon. It's not going to hurt you.
I think so. And I also, I have to say, Julie, it's people are aware, I think, that eating this type of breakfast every day is probably bad for you. But you know what? Some people will decide
to shave off
I don't really care.
Yeah,
I'd rather eat what I want.
Yeah. Some people will decide to shave off a couple years.
They will. They will. Are you allowed to do that? Or must you eat your peas? By the way, peas you can choke on.
Well, yes. Well, Anthony Anthony Bourdain made a great observation. He was on Larry King, or he was on CNN, and he was arguing with a bunch of vegetarians. And they were talking about, oh gosh, this is harmful, that is harmful. And we need to point out to people that, eating a certain way is better for their health. And he said, he stumped the panel by saying, you forget it tastes good. And it's true. I mean, bacon tastes good. Certain meats taste good, and there is a preference for that. And so, some people, and many people are willing to sort of, occasionally take a break from the healthy diet and the healthy lifestyle to actually enjoy themselves. I mean, one thing I say about alarmists is they freak out about everything, but I think the most important thing we need to remember is they're fun stealers. No one can have any fun. Everything that's fun is bad for you, and it needs to be stopped. So this is along the same lines. Stop eating things that taste good. Stop eating bacon and meat and good things, and you'll be healthier, but more miserable.
That's why every now and then you see these stories about why we need to eat bugs. Right. That's why. They're just telling you. I mean, they're telegraphing it, nah, we'll just deny you the food that tastes good. Now, listen, there's a book that came out this week, Julie, called Heavy Lifting.
I know.
Grow Up, Get a Job, Start a Family, and Other Manly Advice.
Congratulations.
And I'm looking forward to actually seeing you next week to talk about the book even more. But, this is a book that deals with, again, growing up, getting married, becoming a dad. And one of the things that we didn't really talk about in the book, maybe we'll save it for the sequel, is talking to your kids about sex. And I have 5 kids, which means that I have gone through this 5 times. And I could tell you every time it's been a little bit different. But you wrote a piece at Acculturated, how not to talk to your kids about sex. Oh, I wish that I had read this years ago, Julie.
Right. Well, I start off by sort of relaying my own experience with it, which was uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie. I'm not so progressive that this is no sweat. Just talk about this stuff. I mean, I really wanted to crawl under the covers and never come back out. But I did talk about it with my oldest son, and I had a very frank conversation with him. I used the right terminology. I was very proud of myself, and I didn't try to sort of, use code for anything or use baby terms. I was very, very scientific about it. And he thought the whole thing was weird and didn't want to talk about it anymore. But I got it out there, right? And so I was reacting. I read this piece, and actually, it's been a while since I can't remember where this other author published her piece, but I was reacting to it because this other author suggested that you make sex talk a part of your everyday conversations with your kids.
Whoa!
Yeah,
whoa,
she gave, yeah, which I mean is so weird, right? Let's just let's just bottom line it. That's so weird. But then she gave sort of tips. Now, look, some of it was useful, talking about, this is certain people, there's appropriate touch and there's inappropriate touch and sort of warning signs, and that kind of stuff is good. And, she's suggesting, using the right terminology and being scientific about it and opening and really trying to create an atmosphere where you are the person they ask these questions to. And that's all great. But she sort of suggested that we should, integrate this talk into our everyday experience with our children. And
as she said, every period, single period, day period.
Yes,
right?
Yes. And so I repeated that in my piece several times, saying you don't have to talk to your kids every single day. And I made the simple point that I think that if you do integrate sex talk into your communications with your child, you're going to look sex obsessed, and you're going to make them sex obsessed and not just informed, and you're going to look weird to them. I mean, look, kids, I don't think at a very young age, I mean, she was talking about talking to your kids as young as 2 years old. And I just don't think kids are that interested at that age in that kind of conversation. And so, so my piece was just really a reaction to that. I think most common sense people think that's a little extreme, think that her advice is a little extreme, and think that, and honestly, that is just a way, you tell that to parents, you say you should integrate sex talk into your conversations with your kids every day. That is a good way to get people to never talk about it. I mean, if you think the only way to have a healthy conversation or to address this issue in a healthy way is that it has to be every day. I mean, I'm telling you, my husband would clamp it shut. He would never talk about it if he thought that he had to integrate it into everyday conversation.
Most parents are thinking, I'd like to have sex talk with my spouse every day, but that doesn't happen. I really, the kids, come on now.
Right.
I mean, seriously, if you think about it, most parents who work, their kids go to school, they'll be around their kids quality time and, the non-quality time, or brush your teeth, time for bed. What, maybe 3 hours a day, maybe 4 hours a day? And you're saying every day, really? That has to be a component.
Yeah.
As you say, I would think the kid would get weirded out if the parent didn't get weirded out about that.
Everyone.
It doesn't
Every once in a while you see these stories. A couple years ago there was might even have been more recent. There was the woman who said, I had sex every day with my husband, and this is what I learned from it. And you get these kind of extreme, people writing these pieces, I think, for sort of the reaction, but again, like, people need to realize this is not good parenting advice. I mean, people are trying to think up things to write about, I guess. I mean, I don't really understand someone who would think that would fly with the general public. But you do see these kinds of extreme examples of people, we tried to rid our entire household of sugar. We tried to do this. We tried to, there's all these sort of these examples of extreme living. Like there was a recent one. We went a full year without spending a dime. I mean, I think they spent money on their mortgage and for necessities, but they didn't buy anything extra. And so, there are these sort of stunts out there. But in the internet age that we live in now, I mean, people actually take these things not as stunts and as like headline generators but as actual practical parenting advice. And I think, what I feel like I'm hoping to do is to tell parents, just this isn't probably good. This is not the best, and more, this isn't sort of what a reasonable person would view as a good tip.
There's probably a reason that throughout human history, in the thousands of years that we've had some semblance of civilization, talking to your kids every period, single period, day period, from the age of 2, about sex, has not become the cultural norm. There's probably a reason why. But, who knows? Maybe the author of this piece is an absolute genius, will just change the way that we view parenting. I doubt it, frankly, but you never know. Listen,
not.
Julie, I appreciate you coming on the program. It is always a pleasure spending time with you, and I will be up there next week. So I will see you
Congratulations on the book. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to get my hands on it, and hope to write something about it soon.
I hope you do as well. I cannot wait. Just don't be as hard on me as you were on this mom, okay?
Okay. I won't.
All right, thank you. All right, Julie Gunlock. You can find her writing at IWF.org, a culture-rated national review. She's all over the place, but IWF.org, that's the website you need to remember. Julie, we'll talk to you again soon.